Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Subnet Show. I am your host, Gabriel Cardona, coming to you from Breath of the Wild today. I'm deep in Zelda. It's great to see everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Subnet Show. As always, I'm joined by my amazing co-host, the man with the most cats in crypto, Connor Daly. What is up, my friend?
Ollie and I are ready for a great show today.
That's right. The official
Bottom of the screen.
Yeah, the official mascot of the Subnet Show is Most Def Ollie. He's been on more episodes than probably I have, so he's pretty on fire. So
next Avalanche Summit, we'll have the merch with all my different cats on it. That'll be
yeah. I can see that. I can totally see that coming together. I keep saying NFTs. There will have to be a corresponding NFT receipt for every physical item. So as always, we are incredibly fortunate working at Ava Labs in that we get to work with just so many incredible block stars, people that I really do I think of as sort of blockchain native, and then, you know, having seen the vision and really sort of in this for the long haul and going to see where the blockchain how it ultimately plays out and has impact on the world. And so today we're very fortunate to be joined by Julian Martinez, our good man, Julian Martinez. From the I don't know what his official title is, but I know currently he's on the developer relations squad, so he's definitely a developer evangelist. And prior to working on the squad that I lead, he actually worked on the dApps squad with Connor. So out of all of the different guests we've had on the Subnet Show, I believe Julian is unique in the sense that he has the single person that's worked with both Connor and Connor's tech stack, and then worked on the developer relations squad and my different tech stacks. So welcome to the Subnet Show, Julian.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Happy to be here. Happy that we got the mascot, Ollie, going strong. So it's going to definitely help out.
Yeah.
So now we have to open with the hard-hitting questions.
Go for it.
Whose squad was better? dApps squad?
Oh my God. He did that. He just went there.
Oh, dang.
Wow. Right, I know the answer.
Right off the kickoff. Dang. I mean, is it too bad to say that, like, you know, they each have their pros and cons?
I love all my squads the same, guys.
You can't do that to me, man.
Which one is your favorite cat, Connor? Come on.
All right. It's like, there's different.
The ranking is Flash, Nala, Ollie, Sarabi.
Sorry, Ollie. Cover your ears. Cover your ears, buddy.
Ollie has some of the most pros, but also the most cons.
He's needy.
No, he's a nervous boy. You know, he doesn't get along with the girls very well because he just is too nervous around them. He like wants to attack them and stuff. He's the biggest chicken in the world, and he just has no chill. But he's also like the most loving of all of the four cats, and, you know, likes to cuddle with you the most. So like I said, the most pros and the most cons.
He's like in the circle of friends that is like, oh, I don't want any new friends. It's like only about my core homies. That's all I talk to. Yeah.
No new friends. No new friends.
No new friends.
Unless they come bearing treats.
This question though, okay. I definitely like the autonomy that dev relations gives and stuff like that. And I really feel like I'm able to, you know, take my own path, learn as much as I can. But like, honestly, first squad, I'm sorry. Hey, it'll come with time.
My heart is broken.
Hey, we gotta go to Korea. That's all I'm saying.
This is the winning culture we built in the dApps squad.
By autonomy, what he means is basically I don't micromanage the hell out of anybody. My particular style of management is that I like to reflect onto people how I like to be treated, and I really don't like people to micromanage me. I feel like I see the vision, I know what needs to be done, and I'm inspired enough to where I wake up in the morning and I get going. You know, like I wake up and the first thing I do is think about what I'm going to be working on. So I try and reflect that back to the people on my squad, and I feel like sometimes, you know, not everybody works well in that environment, right? Some people really need you to kind of let them know where they need to be and micromanage them every day, and that's just not my particular style. So I suspect that's what he's referring to when he says he appreciates the autonomy of the developer relations squad.
I'm very different. I prefer to have all of my squad mates have a one-on-one Zoom Google Meet call open with me all day. I have my camera off. They must have their camera on so I can see what they're doing at all times. Yeah.
Yeah, we were required to install, that mouse trackpad software.
A keyboard logger. He's got a keyboard on your phone. He's got a keyboard logger on your phone.
Yeah, I was getting pinged on Slack saying I haven't typed the key in like 10 minutes. I'm like, hey, bro, just give me
Ollie and I are always watching.
How long have you been at Ava Labs now, Julian?
Man, it's been a year, about a year and some change now. It's the
Over a
7th.
year, right? Yeah, you told me
Yeah.
you passed your year just recently. I remember. Yeah, it's crazy how much you've done in a year, right? Doesn't it seem wild if you think back to
Oh
just
my
a
God.
year? It's like there's a lot compressed into that year, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's been unlike any other dev experience for sure. It's just been, as soon as you start on a team, it's just, you hit the ground running. You may get a project just placed in your lap and you have to figure it out, which is honestly really good way to learn. And it really makes you more resourceful as a dev. And honestly, at first I was kind of stressed. I was saying like, oh man, like it feels like a lot of responsibility as a new guy. But ultimately I've learned to, appreciate those experiences because you get to meet so many people, reach out to people when you need help, and you just learn so much better that way. But yeah.
So one of the things we always do here is that we like to talk about a person's crypto journey and their crypto vision. So I kind of guess building in, sort of tackling the crypto journey part of the story. What were you doing prior to Ava Labs? And is this your first crypto job? I guess it's a two-part question. But number one, how did you discover crypto? And then number two, how did you discover the role at Ava Labs?
Yeah, absolutely. So before Apple Labs, I was working as a kind of like a blockchain researcher / smart contract developer for an
Nice.
art startup, Intelligentsia, that's run by a guy named David Wilson, who actually is moving on to other projects and stuff right now. He does a lot of work in the Native American community, also does a lot of community work with and is trying to, push forward community DAOs, community gardens, and etc. So I was primarily responsible for pretty much figuring out how to tokenize real life art pieces and kind of, digitize those assets into like ERC20 tokens. And the idea there was to, distribute these tokens to our users. They could hold on to them and then the equity would rise in value as those pieces rose. From there, moved on to freelance and worked on a couple of projects, namely Can Work with Johan Lives out of Australia. Super good software developer, super good boss. And then we actually developed like the online platform or the Web3 platform for like Upwork or Fiverr, if you will. So I was responsible for creating like the escrow that happened there, transforming funds into a more suitable distribution token like BUSD, and then came over to Avalanche, Avalab, excuse me. Yeah.
How did you learn Web3?
But yeah, that was pretty much.
Got it. Sorry, there's a lag. I apologize. How did you ultimately learn Web3 and how did you build those skills?
Oh, just tutorials. Udemy was a great resource. Also, just constantly checking out YouTube videos such as what's that guy? Eat the Blocks was a huge help in my Web3 development story. As always, reading the docs, just putting in that work to read through Solidity, read through Ethers, read through the hard hat documentation. Anytime you run into roadblocks, just getting on Discord, shooting a message out to the admins and stuff. That's honestly the best way. Just dive right into it.
Yep. And how about so it sounds like you were working in Ethereum, is that correct?
Yeah, all Ethereum.
Were you exposed to any other blockchain technology other than Ethereum before you joined Ava Labs, or was that your primary skills?
Yeah, no, that's been the primary blockchain I've been working from, and yeah, I really have ultimately no other exposure to other VMs, Rust, Solana, Cosmos, many of those, but always looking forward to learning.
And how did you ultimately find out about the Ava Labs role?
Alvaro actually reached out to me and he was just like relentless, right? Honestly, he was just so relentless. Like he hit me up on LinkedIn and I was looking for jobs, and then had a conversation, and it was just like email after email, call after call, and then took the smart contract coding challenge, which I took a little bit longer than I should have, just because I was so swamped at the time. But yeah, one thing led to another, landed on the dApps squad and hit the ground running and been running ever since.
Alvaro is a firecracker, man. I
Oh,
love
yeah.
that guy. He
Oh,
is
yeah.
totally, he's the guy who would be like, guys, I know you're all tired, but we got to get up and get to the dance
For
party
sure.
right now. Like,
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And did you, whenever you were sort of on-ramping into Avalanche, did you appreciate the subnet virtual machine architecture, or did you kind of just think it was another EVM platform?
I thought it was interesting. I didn't understand it all completely when I first got into it, and I didn't really understand the long-term vision of it. But the more I got involved with it, the more I got, educated about it. I started to realize how, powerful it could actually be, especially when you're talking about enterprise level blockchains, having those prerequisites to become a validator, all that good stuff to keep your own, private network secured and only enable that information transfer from, verified peers between each other, all that stuff. So not to mention, the scalability beyond the other blockchains, right? I mean, I don't want to like use this time to downplay any other blockchains, but honestly, the horizontal scaling and the ability to maintain the original network's throughput, I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? It's obviously a powerful tool. It's going to be a powerful tool for a long time. So, yeah.
so what are you doing now? What is your job like at Ava Labs? Because I actually don't really know that much. Yeah, since you left, we don't talk. We used to talk like every day. Now I don't see so much anymore.
Yeah, I'm like I like to call myself the subject matter expert. I mean, I do a lot of partner integration. I've worked closely with Wildlife Studios to onboard their Castle Crush game. Now I'm working with Lucian and Marcos to onboard Pocket World, constantly contributing to the documentation, constantly looking for ways to maintain Avalanche JS. And honestly, whatever tasks are out in Jira, I'm the guy who will pick those up. But yeah.
Yeah, so you're transitioning to being like one of the faces when we work with external parties.
Yeah.
One of the big integration partners who does a lot of that bridge work.
Yeah, exactly.
To help people integrate with the platform.
Yeah, I am the Telegram team member of the year, I would say.
Oh man, I am the Telegram worst employee of the year.
Let's go.
Yeah,
never message me on any platform, honestly. Just don't.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't. Yeah.
Don't get your hopes up.
It's been incredibly helpful for myself to have Julian on the team, because the developer relations team is kind of like this mixed bag of stuff going on. We maintain Avalanche JS, we do partner integration, we do hackathons and meetups and conferences and giving presentations. And finding a person who's able to hit all those skills is somewhat challenging, because often if somebody's a great engineer, perhaps they're not totally comfortable giving presentations in front of people and being super sociable at meetups and conferences. And conversely, if you find somebody who's very social and sort of open to being on stage and giving presentations, perhaps they're not the best at engineering. And then also having somebody who has the micro and the macro view of the entire system, so they're able to talk about Avalanche in the big, and then they're able to drill down and figure out why that line of code is broken between your library and Avalanche JS or Ethers or whatever. And so building out the developer relations team has always been challenging, because how do you find those people? So having Julian on the team has been incredibly useful for myself, because I'm just incredibly swamped from 1,000 different angles. And so now I without hesitation, without any like doubt in his skills or in his abilities, I hand off stuff to Julian without even a second thought, really. So for what it's worth, Julian, I don't know if I've expressed it to you, but really it has been great having you on the developer relations squad, man. You've been absolutely killing it.
Appreciate it. My opinion on which squad is better is slowly.
At the end of the show, dude. Send me your Avax address. Maybe I can help.
All of a sudden, you're gonna hear a printer in the back. It's gonna be like, "Oh, you're getting on Alaska Airlines on August."
So whenever
to be fair, I miss you.
Yeah,
it's going back. It's going back. No,
so one of the things, though, that we do not do too often on the developer relations squad is that we don't do a lot of super deep diving into, for example, Solidity. So that's something you did much more with Connor's squad, the dApp squad. And on the developer relations squad, we're more sort of at a little bit of a higher level than directly drilling down onto the specifics of certain virtual machines. We're more kind of learning about new virtual machines. So out of all the different virtual machines that could come to my mind right now, we have the Avalanche virtual machine, the platform virtual machine, the Ethereum virtual machine, this timestamp virtual machine. We got the Blob VM, we have Spaces VM, and I don't know if any others come to your mind. Are there any that sort of jump out at you as being pretty cool or something you didn't kind of anticipate or expect? So for example, I think the Blob VM is incredibly cool. And this idea of having this hierarchical key value store. And I think that there's going to be a distributed storage, something service or something that emerges from either Spaces or Blob VM. And it's a space which has not yet been explored. So those come to mind for me. But is there anything that you've sort of been surprised by, or any of the VMs that jump out at you that come to mind?
Yeah, honestly, not so much different VMs, but just like the capabilities that we can express towards like the EVM. I've been having a blast just working with Avalanche CLI, stateful precompiles, and just the customizable, aspect of the EVM, and the fact that you can have your own on, on your local machine. I've just been having a lot of fun with that, trying different configurations, building out bridges locally, and honestly, just looking forward to kind of maybe adding to some more stateful precompiled configurations, whatever that may be. But yeah, I've just been having a blast with that. And that's pretty much been my favorite part of the EVMs. Or the VMs that, yeah.
I think that you're totally right, Gabriel. I think the storage is going to be really interesting, and maybe we'll eventually see something like Filecoin or Arweave, kind of a competitor to that, show up as a subnet. But I'm just really interested to see how we can pull off the cross subnet communication and cross subnet bridging. And if you have a subnet that's dedicated to storage, can you use that for NFT storage, so that you can have an NFT on the C chain that references the JPEG stored on FileNet or whatever. And so can you actually compose them and take advantage of their interoperability to build something that you can't do on just an EVM or just a storage VM, and kind of combine them in an interesting way?
And we are just now sort of hitting the point where subnets and virtual machines are really coming into focus. So, it took us from August 2020 through really this year to sort of harden the primary subnet and to, come up with this idea of stateful precompiles, and to kind of, have that entire explosion that we've seen with the Avalanche ecosystem. Obviously, everybody on this call knows, but anybody who's watching, that's all really been primarily driven by mostly the C chain, which, Connor's work has been absolutely critical there, from starting with Pangolin, literally the very first dApp ever on the network, and then going through with, all the dApp Squad NFT stuff. I think that entire team was incredibly valuable, and it helped bootstrap the network, and it got us to where we are today. But as Julian mentioned, we have this really great horizontal scaling model where we envision this world of application-specific blockchains. So literally today, if you're running your dApp on Ethereum, you're running it with thousands and thousands, or how many smart contracts are running on Ethereum at this current moment, and everybody's competing for the same network capacity and the same bandwidth, and all the validators or miners or whatever they're called, miners, I guess, at this current moment, until it goes proof of stake. In Avalanche land, you just simply do what Kribata did, or do what DeFi Kingdom did. You literally, once you get your dApp running on the C chain, you just spin it off into its own custom subnet, which runs its own instance of the Ethereum virtual machine. And you are the only dApp that's running on that virtual machine and in that subnetwork. So it's almost, it's very much like you're firing up your own layer one, where you're the only dApp that runs on it, and you get all of that throughput and all of that capacity. So this thousands of transactions per second that we're talking about, this sub-second finality, all of this stuff, you get it by yourself. And we saw the other day, Patrick showed a really, really great chart. And actually, I think I did screenshot it. It showed, the network traffic on one of our stats pages, and then it showed when, I believe it was Kribata, when they went to their own primary subnet, and it just showed it like flatlined, because a third or a quarter or something like that of all of the network traffic that was happening on our C chain was Kribata. They were absolutely blowing up. So whenever they went to their own subnet, it had multiple benefits. They all of a sudden got all of that throughput and capacity to themselves, And at the same time, all of that capacity that they were using from the C chain went away. So all of a sudden there was more capacity for other dApps, the cost of gas went down. And so this horizontal scaling model, which we've been talking about now for nearly, a year and a half, is really proving to be incredibly, true. And so now with stateful precompiles, where you can really do more with the Ethereum virtual machine on the Avalanche network than you can even in Ethereum. And I don't think that's overselling it. I think stateful precompiles are a huge, huge innovation.
Definitely.
That's also going to add just we're about to see another renaissance in the entire Ethereum virtual machine ecosystem, and it's going to be driven by Avalanche. And it's going to be very interesting to see how and if these lessons learned and these tech innovations make their way back upstream or find themselves to other chains. Will other instances like of the EVM, like Binance, will they see value in something like this? I know somebody launched super nets or something recently. Who was that? Do you guys remember?
Polygon.
Yeah, Polygon, they had their Subnet.
Super nets, which interesting branding on that one. But so we can already kind of see this, the vision that we've been talking about horizontal scaling, all of the stuff that we've been talking about is now coming to fruition. And now we're entering the chapter of custom virtual machines and subnets. How do it work? How do they work? And so recently, Raj Ranjan, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. Another amazing block star who's on the developer relations squad is putting the final touches on a blob VM tutorial. We've been passing it all around, and everybody's been reviewing from different engineering orgs at the company, and it is super, super sweet. It's like the nuts and bolts about how you create a custom VM as seen through the lens of the blob VM. So he goes to the blob VM and he highlights all of the different components that you have to do to create a custom VM. And then he shows in the blob VM how it's working, and it's just beautiful. So that's going to be the foundation of my next presentation. So I have several different presentations I give, but one of them is just this introduction to Avalanche. And I've given it many, many times. And even still, there's so many fresh eyes on the Avalanche network that I still get a ton of value out of it. Even people who work at Avalanche, after they see the presentation, will be like, wow, I didn't know that was even possible on Avalanche. So the introduction to Avalanche presentation has been incredibly successful, but now I'm working on this whole other one, how to create a custom virtual machine in Subnet, which is based on Raj's work, so that we can finally start getting people to know, like I said, the nuts and the bolts about what it actually looks like to create their own custom virtual machine, because it's sort of a different paradigm than just creating a smart contract, right? If you just want to create a smart contract that already exists, go do that on the EVM. But creating a new virtual machine is like, it's a whole new thing, and it requires a whole different skill set. And so I'm pretty excited to see that come into focus. And I don't know, I suspect the answer is yes for you, Julian, because I know a lot of what you worked on or are working on. But Connor, I'm interested in your opinion. Now, as you do a lot of on-ramping and, people reach out to us every single day across all these channels, are you getting more and more requests for what does it look like to create a custom VM, or are you still getting hit with the EVM questions?
I can take this.
Yeah, either.
So first off, I did not know Raj was working on this, and you were working on this presentation, and I'm now salivating a little bit because I want to read that.
I'll share it
because I don't personally, I don't know how to build a custom VM. I have not gone down that rabbit hole, but I am super interested in that.
Yeah, I'll share with you.
I think we're at an interesting point where I think our marketing is a little bit ahead of our tech, because we're still in the early days right now. The stuff that we're doing is still hard. It's not seamless and it's not easy. And this
Avalanche
is what I really care about.
Yeah, Avalanche Cly is killing it. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly like the thing that I care about the most right now at work is our shit is hard to use. Like, we need the Geico, it's so easy a caveman can do it kind of thing for subnets.
Sure.
And then once we have that, then the people who have the crazy ideas for building VMs will have the tooling that it's not impossible. And like, I think, within a year, like we'll be there. But like, I mean, it's going to take us a couple months. I mean, I was working on kind of a roadmap timeline today, and I think it's probably going to be another 2 months at least, maybe 3, before we can kind of get to what I think is the 1.0 of the CLI. We're still in the beta. We're still a few months away at least from that full featured release. But I was thinking about this, like for Ethereum, smart contracts were around forever, but it took like 6 years for DeFi summer to pop off. because if you tried writing a smart contract in 2017, much less like 2015, the tooling was terrible and it was just not easy to do. It was hard to be successful. You had to there were a couple tools and they worked decently, but like they're not nothing like what you have now with different like simulation apps, different visualizers, different local environments that you can run. I mean, like when I first started writing Solidity smart contracts, I was like, had to set up my own like, local Geth network basically to make some of this work. And it's just a giant pain. So, I mean, subnets are kind of in the same state where you can bootstrap them and you can do them, but you have to be a mega expert to really make it work. But we don't want mega experts to be the only people who can build on our platform. We want everyone to be able to build on our platform. I kind of think of myself like I'm like literally the most, when I started on the platform squad a few months ago, I kind of was thinking that like I'm the most qualified person in the world to build subnets that does not know how to build a subnet. Like I know exactly what subnets are. I know about all of the high level features that they support. I just don't know the API calls that I need to make. I don't know the libraries I need. So I'm going to dig into those. And it was entirely obtuse. It was a really hard experience. And if I just think of myself, I am literally the most prepared person in the world for this moment. What does it look like if I'm not the most prepared person in the world? And those are the people we have to cater to. I don't say that to be like arrogant or whatever, just kind of as a thought experiment.
As if it's factual. You're positioned there as one of the experts in this technology, and there's still so many open questions about how it all comes together, for sure.
Yeah, and so this is what I work on, because I do see on Twitter all the time, I'm getting questions of like, I want to build my subnet, but I want AVOX to be this is an interesting kind of brain teaser. I want AVOX to be my gas token, not an ERC20. And so you're like, oh yeah, like we should be able to do that. It's actually really tricky. And the reason for that is because you can't mint AVOX on your own then. That's the problem, right? You need to bridge AVOX from the C chain into your subnet and then use that token as a gas token. So we have a precompile to help you with this, the native minter, which will allow you to mint native AVOX from your bridge contract. But the problem is, how do you deploy your bridge contracts on that subnet? You need some gas token to do that. So it turns out, if you want to do that, we probably need another precompile or another formula to do that. That'll let you mint yourself some like bootstrap AVOX that you can use to set up your network and like deploy your initial contracts. That eventually you turn off access to, or you burn it all or whatever, and then you only use bridged AVOX from there on out. But it's kind of like a chicken and the egg problem, and it's just like, oh, that UI sucks. There's no like easy user path for that, but like obviously I think that there's going to be a lot of demand for creating subnets that use AVOX as a gas token. So how can we provide that to users in a effective, efficient, easy to understand, easy to learn way? Those are the hard questions we're dealing with right now. And so that's some of the stuff that I'm working on.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point of like, when you said that you're looking out for the people who aren't those mega experts and all that stuff, that is honestly how I feel we kind of make our own lane, especially at Avalanche. Looking at our documentation and like having worked on the docs so much, I really feel like they're in a place that, they really portray the information that either new users can kind of get to a level of understanding with maybe a little research on the back end, but experienced users, people who have been involved with computer science and stuff like that, they can kind of, wrap their head around pretty easy. But I do feel like the documentation, at least now as an organization, is pretty quality. So.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think our documentation has taken a major step forward in the last 6 months to a year. I think we did the typical startup thing where we wrote the documentation for version 1, and then we got to version 5, and the documentation is still at version 2,
right.
version like 1.5, just because when you have like very limited resources, everybody was all build, 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 build. We didn't have any maintainers. You know, we
Right.
didn't really have anybody whose job it was to, we had the people whose job it was to accelerate. We didn't have the people whose eyes it was to like, look out, make sure everything was working well, patch all the leaks, fill all the holes.
We had accelerators, not moderators.
Exactly. And so now I think we're just reaching that kind of like critical organizational mass where we can still have the accelerators, still have the builders, but also have enough support and enough people who can be talking to the community and can be looking at our own stuff and seeing, what's out of date, what's not working for people anymore, what's changed, what's confusing. And I mean, the microcosm of this, we have this problem on the CLI right now. I wrote the CLI docs for version 1. We're on version like 1.5. So, there's, especially we're doing like huge feature changes and stuff gets out of date really fast. And I don't necessarily update the documentation for every command every week. So
Gotta get Yulin on board.
Yulin's a beast. Yulin, if you see this, I think he does watch most of the episodes. If you see this, Yulin, I have so much respect for you, dude. You're an absolute champion. That's what I was getting ready to say in the context of sort of Connor saying that the docs have come into focus over the last 6 months or the year. Yulin is a big part of that, and the developer relations squad has started to grow more, and there's just been more people. Raj is absolutely killing it. Julian is actually absolutely killing it, and we're actually scaling out the team right now. We have a lot coming up in the developer relations squad. There is an absolute crazy amount of stuff that's going to be happening over the 6 months, next 6 months. In fact, so much stuff is on our roadmap that I'm actually going on vacation next week. Because I really feel like I need to take a second to have a decompression mode, because I feel like we're about to kick it into ultra super high speed. And so if you are watching this and you are a developer relations kind of person, please reach out, because we're trying to find the very, very best in the world. And we know that we just need to add a few more people, but if we get the right people, they'll have the same amount of contribution as the ones we brought on recently did. Raj, for example, won the last tutorial competition we had. I think he won 2 or 3 of the different bounties. Julian obviously came on board and is killing it. Yulin, who technically is not an engineer, well, he is an engineer. He used to be an engineer, but technically he's one of the product managers. He's absolutely killing it. Lucian, another person who technically is a product manager, but absolutely is an engineer and has blockchain native engineering chops, is also working with us. Jovitsa, of course, I can't not mention Jovitsa. Damn, dude, I'm sorry if you saw this, Jovitsa. Jovitsa's been killing it from day one. He's the very first person to join the developer relations squad. And on top of that, the entire organization now is taking a much more proactive work on the docs. I feel like before it was kind of siloed to the developer relations squad, which was only a couple of us. Now, like Connor, running with the Avalanche Clyde docs is just sort of owning it, right? That's his squad's product. They're owning the documentation. That helps a lot on our end, of course, because there's so many different components in the Avalanche tech stack. It's challenging for one squad to kind of, understand the breadth and the depth of every single one of these things. So if you guys happen to see this and you are a developer relations squad type person, feel free to reach out to myself or Julian online, because we're definitely trying to find the very, very best people in the world.
Yeah, to that point about having all that content, I really feel like Avalanche is different from any other organization, because I mean, there's just literally so much to learn, right? Like you have the Avalanche CLI, you have the Subnet CLI, Avalanche Network Runner, you have so many different things you could do with different types of VMs. You're constantly learning. You could feel like you master something next week or this week, and then the next version of the product that you thought you knew comes out, and then you start that learning process all over again. Keep building, keep expanding. So it's a really fast moving company. And it really, accelerates your rate of growth for sure.
And one thing I would add is I would especially encourage people to apply if they don't think they're the full package.
Yeah.
Because we have such room for a wide variety of skills. You don't need to be the world's greatest developer and the world's greatest public speaker and the world's greatest technical writer. If you just honestly, probably the biggest, most important thing is a passion for Avalanche and a willingness to learn. We occasionally have these opportunities like this. Recently, we had a tutorial contest that was for writing some tutorials and documentations, and there was like $30K worth of prizes. And It's not just a prize. We look at who does the submissions as well.
That's how we
And
got Raj. That's literally how we got Raj. He won the last one, and now he's one of our most important engineers. He's absolutely destroying it. For sure.
And if you can create a quality product, like we notice, and like those are the kind of people that we want. So don't worry if you're just like, well, I heard they work on Avalanche JS. I don't really know JavaScript. Not the most important thing in the world. Maybe you don't necessarily want to be a public speaker either. Maybe maybe you just prefer writing things, like, not the end of the world. Like, there's a lot of different roles and a lot of different opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, just to sort of highlight that exact thought, Jovica, for example, he's on the developer relations squad. He doesn't contribute a ton to Avalanche JS, but he definitely carries his weight and contributes a ton. Raj isn't doing a ton of public speaking, but he's absolutely destroying it in the technical writing department, and even now contributing to Avalanche Go and stuff. So yeah, I think Connor is right. You don't have to be amazing at every single thing. The most important thing is about being passionate, being easy to get along with, being hardworking and competent, and then just having a passion for continuous learning. Because as Julian mentioned so well, you can think you've mastered something today, and then tomorrow there's an entirely new virtual machine. So, you could spend your entire career deep diving on just the EVM. Plenty of people do, right? There's people who are strictly EVM engineers, and that's what they do day in and day out. And we suspected something was similar when we merged for all these other VMs. So, if Spaces takes off, or the Blob VM, and it becomes the foundation for the next huge decentralized storage dApp or whatever service that emerges, some entirely new paradigm that we don't quite know is there, but we can sort of feel all of the pieces coming into place. You could spend your entire career geeking out on that. There's going to be virtual machines which launch in non-Golang languages. So, today everything is primarily in Golang, or we use TypeScript a lot, and we use Solidity. That's kind of our 3 languages that we use at Ava Labs. But there's a gRPC API. There's a VM called the RPC chain VM, which allows you to run your virtual machine. It's basically, there's this gRPC API that if your language can implement it, and most modern languages have gRPC libraries. So if you can implement this certain interface, you can actually run your virtual machine written in another language in a separate process from the Avalanche Go process. It's RPC. See, Ollie's on board. Ollie knows what's up. Ollie's like, Rust VM, WASM, Rust.
I was like, Dad, you said this would be over by 8:15.
Sorry, Ollie.
It's 8:15 now.
A couple more minutes, buddy. So yeah, there's going to be entirely new paradigms of, we need people who are not even just Golang specific. That's another thing I really think is going to be exciting. I'll pass it around, and then we'll let you get back to Ollie, Connor. So one of the things I think is going to be very exciting, there's so many things. Avalanche just is such a great tech stack. It was thought out so well by the original architects, Goon and Kevin and Ted and whoever else, Steven. It's done so freaking well, man. And this RPC chain VM that I was just talking about, that allows you to implement this RPC API and then run your virtual machine in a separate process from Avalanche Go, and then basically the RPC chain VM wraps your virtual machine and as a gRPC server, and then the main Avalanche Go process can make queries into your virtual machine despite being in another language. I think that opens up so much potential, because Golang is obviously not the only language in the world. So I wonder, what are your guys' thoughts on that? I don't know if you're even that familiar with the RPC chain VM, but what do you think are the sort of the impact and the implications of writing these virtual machines in other languages other than just Golang?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, coming from the partner integrations point of view, and being more out-facing and not super involved with developing like core blockchain infrastructure like that, I would say that it really opens up the opportunity for creators of all kinds of VMs to just come in and be able to contribute whatever they think their VM should look like. This is my version of it. This is my spin-off on it. And I really think it just honestly helps open up the door to not only education for local developers, but also opens up the possibility for implementation in the enterprise, outfits and more, I guess you could say, official bodies even governments might have an idea for how they want to implement a VM. Even, big companies like Microsoft, Google, et cetera, they're obviously dabbling in the idea of blockchain, and they're obviously looking for a solution to implement to their operations already. So it only makes sense to think of a custom VM or an existing VM that you could also do on Avalanche, but having that true configurability and having that security and throughput and all the things that come with Avalanche, it only makes it that much better of a decision.
Yeah, I think it having this kind of flexibility opens you up to different communities. For example, a lot of the operating systems research community does work in C++. I think people who are like systems developers for the last 20, 30 years, they mostly worked in C or C++. And so I'm not sure how much of that generation is jumping into crypto or not right now, but when we look at like where the jobs are going to be in the next few years, like this is one of the things, like it's almost impossible to get, if you like operating systems, it's almost impossible to get a job in them because there's only like 3 or 4 operating systems that are like actively developed pretty much. So like there's very few, but now if there's tons of opportunities and it becomes a wide open field, a lot of those people who would go into traditional systems development might want to work on this kind of thing. And if you want to bring in people who aren't just 20 years old, a lot of that community is not necessarily going to be a Rust Golang type of community. And I think like that's a huge advantage. And another thing I'll tease out, a little future spoiler for some functionality that I think is really important in CLI that I think is going to be really cool is I wrote some end-to-end tests for the CLI that basically just calls it in a script, but I use these scripts in an automated way to basically launch chains, launch some subnets to run end-to-end tests against. I'm running like hard hat tests in a script against networks that are spun up in a CI. And so one of my big goals over the next couple of months is to enable you to do that for a custom VM and basically have a continuous integration SDK so that as you're developing your own virtual machine, you can actually like hook it into your CI, it can like run automatically, and you can like run your integration tests against it. I think it's going to be really neat. Having those tools is going to really just improve the experience of building these blue sky things because you actually are supported rather than inventing, building the plane as you're taking off.
Good analogy. Okay, awesome. So I think we want to maybe start bringing things to a close here. So I think first off, I just want to express gratitude to Julian. Thank you for joining us, man. It's been a pleasure having you on. You have an open invitation to come back anytime. I really do enjoy working with you every day. So awesome work, dude. It's been a pleasure. Do you have any last minute thoughts? And then how can people find you online?
Definitely. I did want to shout you out, Connor, because there's something that you definitely mentioned about not having the, I guess, technical background to apply for Avalanche. I will say when I first came to Avalanche, I wasn't a super confident engineer. I mean, I had my fair share of work. I had my deployments. I had my, value locked and all that stuff. But when I knew Avalanche was, needed people and I understood what it was, I was really intimidated. But there are folks at Avalanche that, I think something that we could really pride ourselves on. We have heart, right? Like if you are putting in those hours to learn something, and if you're being actively engaged and you're all about expanding your, developer knowledge, I really do feel like it is the place for people like that. So yeah, thank you. Thank you both really for teaching me so much, Connor. Really, Ave, so many good experiences coming up and deploying all those products. Gabriel, obviously a beast, unlimited knowledge, crazy communicator. I've never seen anyone communicate like you. So yeah, man, it's been a pleasure. It's been great, learning from both of y'all, and I look forward to the future and kicking ass. Do you have to bleep that out?
How can people find you? How should people find you? Twitter or Telegram, or what do you prefer?
I guess you could find me on Telegram. I don't do social media or anything like
that's
that.
Right. I'm sorry. I had to put you on blast.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. Yeah, you can find me on Telegram at Julian_dev.
Let's go dev. Okay, sweet.
Cool.
All right.
Oh, thank
Connor?
you very much for that, for those kind words. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember when you first started, and yeah, that's my secret. You gotta get those underconfident, undervalued people, and then train them up real good.
I remember like the first week he was like, yeah. Or like one of the first month, it's like, so you're gonna be handling Aave onboarding. And I was like, oh, okay, like Aave? He was like, yeah, just go
You
ahead,
gotta
bro.
you gotta
Just
find the diamond
figure
in
it
the
out,
rough,
bro."
man. You gotta find the diamond in the
I
rough. You
was
gotta be able to
like,
spot it.
oh, like, yeah, man, I remember all those meetings. I was super nervous and stuff, man. I was like, oh man, these guys are straight up killers. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Aave. They announced their new stablecoin today, which is
Oh, snap.
pretty cool. That's I admire people who are willing to build stable coins. I do not have the intestinal fortitude to try that myself,
Yeah.
because I feel like the likelihood of them blowing up is so large, and I don't want to be on the receiving end of that, because I just don't feel like I know enough or trust myself enough. But I will say that team has been really incredible at every challenge they've undertaken. So if anybody can do it, it's them.
For sure.
But yeah, we can wrap up. And yeah, it's been great having you, Julian. Great getting to catch up a little bit. Yeah, I can't believe it's only been a year. I don't remember if I've said this on the podcast before. Somebody pointed this out on Twitter a week or two ago. But when you work in crypto, you age in Doge years. So that was 7 years of work that you just did in 12 months. But yeah, hopefully the next 12 months will be just as exciting and productive. But yeah,
Absolutely.
if you are interested, I would say if you're interested in hearing more from me, you can always find me on Twitter. I'm DAS_Connor, DAS_CONNOR. There's lots of ways to spell Connor, but that is the correct way.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, thank you as always. I always really do like to just express gratitude to anybody who's watching. If you just jumped in for the last 5 minutes of the episode, if you've been through the entire episode, and to everybody who's been with us on the entire Subnet show journey. I just really, so many people reach out to me and mention the Subnet show to me. It just hey Ollie, just random, like when I'm out at conferences, people will be like, Subnet show, yeah. Or, when I'm meeting a new teammate, they're like, yeah, I love the Subnet show. So it means a lot to me. And Connor and I have recently been brainstorming on ways we might change up the format or introduce changes. We want to keep it fresh, and we want to make sure it's providing meaning for everybody. And it remains such a great opportunity to have a microphone in the Avalanche ecosystem, because we're so early. If you just play this out over the next years, 5 years, 10 years, I mean, however long, Avalanche is absolutely huge. We're building the internet of finance, and it's going to have an impact which is going to be around for generations. And so I just want to express gratitude again to everybody who's been part of the Subnet show journey. You guys absolutely rule, and thank you to every person who actually reaches out to me and mentions the Subnet show. So we will be back next week. We have some great guests lined up as always. We've got a lot going on. We've got a lot to introduce to you guys. So come back and join us. Same bat channel, same bat station. And as we always say, from Snowflake to Avalanche and through consensus to the stars. Thank you, everybody. Peace.